Brew Strong is brought to you by Blickman Engineering, home of the Riptide. Visit them online at blickmanengineering.com.
Brewers, it's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think, Jamil Zainasheff and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, howdy, hey, my brewing brothers and sisters.
Greetings.
I tell you, having you here, Justin, it reminds me of the good old days back in the garage.
The good old days, yeah.
Yes.
The days where I picked up some horrible disorder that is now killing me.
Something clearly happened to people in that Pacheco garage.
Yes.
JP's gotten the sickness.
Yes.
Tasty.
Yes.
You.
Yes.
I think me, but I don't really go to the doctor to find out for sure.
You don't really want to know until...
Until it's too late.
I mean, you die when you die, and the doctor probably isn't going to change that. I'm guessing what you have is not curable.
Probably so. It's why I don't bother going.
Right. There you go. It makes perfect sense to me.
Just is what it is.
Yeah. Hair loss happens to most of us, so don't worry.
Right. I haven't experienced that yet, but I do remember it wasn't quite a piece of advice from Jamil. It was like it was a warning of when
of impending doom.
Yeah, just when getting old is like really getting old, and
yes.
So I don't really have hair loss yet, and I don't have this other symptom yet either. But I remember you saying
the wiener still works.
The day you look down and the pubes are gray. Is when you really go. You said this. You're like, that's when you really go. Shit, I am getting old.
Yeah.
So I'm just waiting for that ball to drop, so to speak.
I forgot about that. See, I'm full of solid advice.
Yeah, man.
No wonder this show is such a gem of the internet.
That's right.
Yeah. Justin and I were just talking about the loss of elasticity in our cradles here.
We were at the break. It's true.
You mean things are swinging low? The sweet chariot is going quite lower?
Our microphones we were talking about, really. Sometimes the elasticity in them makes them sag a little.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys are talking about, but my balls really hang a whole lot lower than they did when I was younger.
Gravity always wins.
Things, and here's the thing. Before you may not want to listen to this, but like I'll be going to bed, and I kind of like lift the sack up, and
Oh yeah.
So I'm not laying on top of them things.
So you don't hurt yourself. Right. Yeah, I've sat on it too, man.
Right.
Yeah.
You gotta pull them up, flop them up on top, and prepare yourself for bed. It's a fact. Now, Bevo, I'm imagining you're experiencing that maybe with other parts of your anatomy. Maybe something you don't want to be rolling over and pinching one of those things off.
Yeah. The gender does not matter. Gravity just always wins.
Gravity eventually takes over. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's something that I seriously notice and that I experience every night now. I haven't had the giant avocado ball in a while, but I have had to pick them up and sling them around.
Right.
In preparation for sleeping. Yeah.
It sounds like the least of your worries right now.
Well, it's still important to me. It's just from a comfort level, old familiarity, good old friends. They've been with me my whole life.
They have, for better or worse.
Well, right.
Yeah.
Just like I feel John Blickman has been with me my whole life.
Yeah.
For better or worse, he's been there. He's been our sponsor. Just one of the best sponsors you're ever going to have, because no matter how crappy this show is, no matter what, he's in there. He's cutting the check. He's paying for the show, so you don't have to. Great guy. Brilliant engineer.
Yeah.
And just one of the sweetest people I know, and making great stuff that will improve your brew day, will make your brew day more fun, more productive, more consistent, more reliable. And he's now doing it for the pro level as well. He's taken his genius and he's applying it in his manufacturing knowledge and making pro level equipment that if you want to go pro, he's got it for you.
He's got 5-barrel turnkey systems that work really well.
Right. And if for some reason not, I guarantee you he's going to make it right. That's you can back it up with a John Blickman guarantee. I'll personally guarantee it myself. If you decide to go with Blickman, you're in safe hands. And if you're not looking for the 5-barrel pro system, if you're not looking for all the bells and whistles, and you're just looking for solid, great brewing equipment, there's a whole Anvil line. He's got it covered from Anvil to Z, whatever that would be.
Anvil to Blickman to Pro.
There you go. A to B to P. He's got to have a Z line. I'm just thinking this is an opportunity for me to get in with Blickman.
There you go.
And then we can have it from A to Z.
I didn't think of that. That's good.
There you go. Right. That's a gem that you can turn into tens of dollars.
Yeah.
I'm thinking,
if you make it to another homebrew con, maybe we'll see that by next year.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
I was there. I was literally there.
Right.
I was in Providence in my hotel room.
Days before the rest of us.
Yeah,
early.
I was there. I was so excited.
Yeah.
I was really looking forward to it. And my darn wife.
Yeah.
And she's alive still.
At least that's good. It wasn't a waste.
Well, yeah. Yeah. She had to have emergency surgery. She had some ovary cyst twisted.
Oh, man.
The thing is, it's like your testicles.
Okay.
Right. And when one of them gets twisted, testicular torsion, it starts filling up with blood, starts swelling up.
Yikes.
And it can be a real problem. It could kill you. And the same thing happened to her, and they started filling up with blood. The blood goes in, but it can't get back out.
Okay.
And so one of these cysts was the size of a basketball, and one was the size of a softball. And it was pressing against her other organs, making her, and nearly killed her.
Oh, goodness sake.
So but the good thing is they got it out.
Yeah.
And, almost immediately.
Okay.
She's better.
I see.
So she's back to work, working her ass
fine,
off
huh?
like she usually is.
You guys both do that.
Yeah.
You both you work your asses off.
More her than me. I appreciate you throwing me in there in the bunch.
I think you both do. I wonder when you guys are going to take a break. Isn't it time for a break yet?
It was time for a break years ago.
Yeah,
it was. But
you're too cheap. You won't hire. You won't replace yourself. Is the problem is.
I'd be so happy to replace myself.
Yeah.
One, I wouldn't have this idiot working for me anymore. I'd have some other idiot working for me.
Right.
But two, it's just
Well, I'm glad she's okay.
Yes.
I was worried when you said you had to leave real quick. I was worried about Liz. So
I got out of the shower. I got her text. I got in contact with the United, which was lovely.
Really?
And actually even refunded me $218.
Oh, that never happens. Wow.
Didn't charge me to change my flight.
Really?
Yeah. And flew me back, got me home. I was home by around midnight.
Wow. That's really great.
Well, finding out 10 o'clock in the morning in Providence.
Yeah.
And then getting me to Sacramento at midnight. That's pretty damn, with no notice.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of weather cancellations and stuff over there.
Wow.
That's just brilliant.
You don't hear those success stories very often.
It did cost me $120 to take a cab from Providence to Logan.
Okay, yeah.
But, they got me on a flight, and it was well worth it.
Worth every penny.
Yeah. And Liz is alive. So
there we go. That's what matters.
Well, there's certain things that matter. It's fairly important to me.
Yeah.
She's in the top 10.
I'd have to make that list, but yeah, I imagine so. Speaking of which, we are going to be going over John and I's must-have top 10 list of
brewing equipment.
Brewing equipment for brewing beer in your brewery. I mean, have I explained it enough?
It's pretty good.
I think so.
Right. Well, and I guess John's going to tackle the homebrew side. I'm going to tackle the pro side, and we'll see what we come up with. I don't know. It could be very interesting.
I like it. I think people like these sorts of things from those that they respect. Like Palmer. They want to hear what's your top 10 things you can't
beer on your console here.
Top 10 things you can't do without. I think over the years you guys have had enough experience that you whittle down that. You've probably been through some equipment that you thought you needed, and now you're like, I don't have even touch that anymore.
Absolutely.
So
and when doing this list, I was like, I could brew without hardly anything. You put me naked on an island.
Mm-hmm.
But, besides that, you put me in a situation where there's no brewing equipment.
Right.
And I'll brew some beer. One way or another, I'm making alcohol.
Yeah.
And we're drinking.
Right. Yeah.
One way or another, I can make it work. So I don't think you need, in a way, any equipment. Mm-hmm. I think you take somebody like John Blickman and you strand him on a desert island. He's going to find some washed up crap, and he's going to put together stuff and start making. He'd probably make methamphetamine,
right?
And just be out of his gourd.
Yeah.
But the rest of us would probably do
He'd
beer.
be the professor on Gilligan's Island.
Yeah. Yeah. But more fun.
Right. And with more meth.
Yeah, exactly.
He would definitely be making meth.
Yeah. So that may be so, JZ, that, as you become an experienced brewer, you can do without a lot of things. But I still think that this list is like how you guys optimize and make the best thing you can easily.
Well, that's the whole thing. And why I'm such a fan of Blickman stuff is because it's improving your brew day. It's removing some of the restrictions, the complexities, the difficulty. It's like surviving on a desert island.
Yeah.
You end up, struggling to get food versus going to the grocery store or the refrigerator or cooking on a stove. You have to light a fire with a couple of sticks, and it's just very difficult. Why should brewing be that way? Mm-hmm. Spend a little bit of money, get the things that are important. Don't waste money, because look at some of these things that we're going to talk about and implement them in your brewery and your brew day. Your brewing's going to get better. It's going to get easier, more consistent. And when you have that, I think you make better beer because you've eliminated a lot of problems. It's like you cook better food when you have the tools to do it and the ingredients to do it.
Sure.
So there you go.
I like it.
Let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll get into John's top 10 right after this.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Are you looking for a simple brewing system that's great for all grain brewing, but everything on the market seems to be full of compromises? Blickman Engineering has the answer. The Blickman Brew Easy All Grain Brewing System. The Brew Easy is a complete system with easy upgrades and a beautiful compact design, perfect for any size brewing location. At its core, the Brew Easy is built on two gorgeous Blickman Boilermaker brew kettles, a high-temperature March pump, and either a top-tier gas burner or the new Boil Coil electric heater. The Brew Easy adapter lid allows the pots to stack on top of each other, forming an efficient, strong, and compact brewing setup that comes in 5, 10, and 20-gallon batch sizes. Upgrade your Brew Easy system with full automated control by adding a Blickman Tower of Power temp controller, and make moving around easy with the Blickman Kettle Cart. The Brew Easy is modular. If you already own a Boilermaker kettle, you can build your Brew Easy by purchasing just the modules you need. The new Brew Easy all-grain brewing system. See it today at BlickmanEngineering.com and brew with Blickman quality on your new Brew Easy.
The two guys that know how to turn beer into beer. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. All right. Top 10 things, pieces of equipment you cannot do without, John, in your brewing. Let's start with, do we need drum rolls? Do we need David Letterman saying these things? What would be number 10?
Number 10, a pump.
A pump.
Yep.
Now, see, the interesting thing about doing this in reverse is...
important, but kind of the least important in the grand scheme of things.
Right, because you could use gravity instead of a pump. What kind of pump would you use? The Blickman has those...
Riptide pumps.
The Riptide pumps. I tell you, just genius on the... maybe it sounds like a Blickman commercial, but when we're talking about equipment, I'm always amazed at the innovations that guy does.
Oh yeah,
not that I get paid anything from by promoting it, but I really do. He took like the standard pump and put just genius stuff on it. I'm always amazed, just amazed. So yeah, Blickman's not blowing me or anything. I'm just saying. I'm always surprised.
Yeah, well, but yeah, a pump is a great piece of equipment.
Especially when it blows me. That's really when I'm surprised.
That's even better.
All right. Right. Pump, very useful for things like if you want to do a whirlpool chilling, if you want to transfer, here to there, versus relying on gravity all the time, which can be a real pain in the ass. And
sometimes blockage occurs and you have more resistance than the line that you figured, and hey, a pump can push it through. So, pump, very useful piece of equipment.
When you have blockage, when blockage occurs, pump it. Did you hear that, Justin? When you have blockage, you want to pump it.
You want to pump it.
Okay.
Got it. We're making notes.
Right. I think squeezing hard and pulling a little more will sometimes clear the blockage.
Get the blockage.
You need to clamp down on the hose, squeeze, and pull.
Okay.
What's your number 10, Joel?
Oh, no, we're going back and forth?
We can do it either way.
Yeah, why not?
Why? What do you mean, why not?
Why not?
Oh, Jesus Christ, Justin.
You weren't ready?
I wasn't ready. Throw me. Well, and this will again sound like an ad for Blickman, but I had a Blickman beer gun. On the pro side, a Blickman beer gun.
That's your number 10.
Yeah. It's not critical, but when you want to, submit things to a competition, or when you want to, send something out for lab analysis, we have our full lab. But we also send out samples to other labs to confirm what we're doing as well. We don't do it, everything we do, but, maybe a couple times a year we will send samples out to other labs to verify what we're doing. It's just a double check. And having the beer gun, you can get a 0 parts per billion fill on a bottle with a Blickman beer gun. It takes a long time, but it's one of the only ways you can do it. And you can just flood that thing and then fill it up. And so for competitions, things like that, it's it's cheap relatively in the pro world, and really
effective and easy.
Effective, easy to use.
I think I've told this before.
Oh, and interrupt your idea.
That's okay.
Because I'll forget mine.
Yeah,
otherwise.
Right. Go ahead.
And we do on Evil 3 Day. We actually fill growlers directly from the fermenter, and we use Blickman beer guns for that.
I knew I had seen one in your brewery in the back, not up at the tap room, and I was trying to remember what that was for, and it was to fill the give people wort. Even.
Right. Evil 3 Day will fill growlers directly from the fermenter, and the beer guns are one of the only ways you can do that. You can't just just walk up to the fermenter and crack open the valve and spit it into a growler. That'd be screwed.
Keep it nice and clean.
Yeah, so Blickman Beer Gun. Yeah, actually, see, now that I thought about that, I may have moved it up the line. But
well, and I just wanted to say quickly, because I don't remember what state it was, either Tennessee or Texas, where they're allowed to, from a bar, they're allowed to sell that and sell growlers. So you don't have to be a brewer. You could just be a tap room and sell growlers.
Right. Oregon, a bunch of...
And gosh, maybe it was even Oregon. But I went into this bar, and instead of having 20 taps...
20 Blickman beer guns.
They had 20 Blickman beer guns.
It's in Oregon, I want to say.
Okay.
I think it's in Oregon.
You might be right, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And they had like carboys for chandeliers or something.
Yeah. And even if you went in to order a pint, they would fill the pint from the Blickman beer gun.
Right.
But mostly they were doing a lot of growlers to go.
Right.
So rather than have one little station, they just made every single tap.
Every single tap, yeah.
I thought it was great.
I did too. I thought it was brilliant.
Cool idea.
It was really cool, yeah. So there you go. Maybe that should have been number 1.
We'll see.
Okay. John, you're number 9?
The auto siphon and similar products thereof. Just saw a really interesting one at the past HomebrewCon. They had a stainless steel silicone auto siphon type product company was selling. But, I mean, compared to trying to suck on a piece of hose to get a siphon going, the auto siphon just
depends how well you know how to suck.
Well, yeah, but and where your mouth's been,
right?
But it just prevents a lot of contamination, a lot of bottle bombs and strange fermentation.
Well, see, here's where I gotta disagree with you on this one, because I always hated any auto siphon, and maybe it was because when I started, the auto siphons that were available were pieces of crap. They never started the siphon. I could never get them to work, and so I always went with just a piece of hose.
That's how you pump it, man.
That's right. Or it's how you suck it. I would snap myself off a fresh piece of hose, and I'd start with like a turkey baster or whatever, and I never had any problems with that. But the auto siphon, I always struggled with it. And maybe it's because I'm very limited and very special. That could be it.
To each his own.
Right. Yeah, well, that's brewing. Everybody's got his own way of doing it. It's one of the cool things about collabs. We get a little time. I did a collab with some friends of mine in Birmingham, England, called Burning Soul Brewing. And just the greatest guys in the world. I love these guys, Chris and Rich. And why am I talking about this? Well, because everybody's got a different way of brewing, and every time you go and do a collab, you learn something, or you see something, a different way that somebody else is doing it, and they're doing it successfully. Burning Soul, I have tasted every single one of the beers, not like special samples that they were giving me. It was just like pull it off the tap while we were brewing, and just freaking perfect and delicious. And the reason is because they know what they're doing with their kit. Now, if I had to brew on that kit, it's not the greatest equipment in the world, but they're making world class beer off of what they got. And I can tell you this story, all right? I got time. Who's gonna worry about this? Nobody listens to the show, anyways. We made a Imperial Milk Stout, 650 liters of wort, and we dissolved 50 kilograms of marshmallows into the wort.
Wow.
Yes. It was 20% of the grist by weight. A marshmallow doesn't weigh much. It's 70% air. By weight, it was 20% of the grist.
Wow.
And when you throw, I have not done this on this scale before. I've brewed on large scale, but when you throw some marshmallows into wort, you don't really realize, because it's, what do you throw in? Like a handful, a bag? Big deal. The 50 kilos, when you put a marshmallow into boiling wort, it's 70% air, and that 70% of air is like a mini boil over going to happen every time you throw one in. And so we're trying to the 50 kilos of marshmallows was bigger than the kettle we were using, but we got them all to dissolve in there. It took we were constantly throwing them in, and the most amazing thing, the whole thing started turning quite viscous. And marshmallows are made up of vanilla flavoring, glucose, dextrose, and gelatin. There's quite a bit of gelatin in those things.
Okay.
And gelatin is a fining agent. We use it here in the U.S. all the time, and it'll pull yeast out like you wouldn't believe. And so I started panicking a little bit. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I wonder if the gelatin is going to take the yeast out of suspension, keep this thing from fermenting.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, my God, I've screwed these guys up on this really expensive beer. And but then I'm like, well, the gelatin will coagulate, and it should drop to the bottom, and it shouldn't really cause a problem. But then on the other hand, I mean, maybe it stays in suspension. Maybe the whole thing turns into like a solid mass once it cools down.
Right.
So it was a lot of fun.
But it worked. None of that happened.
Everything worked out just fine.
Okay.
You can put 50 kilograms of marshmallows. That's about all that will dissolve into 650 liters of wort. And
did it clarify? Was it a clear beer because of the gelatin, though? Or was it a hazy? Or
I think it should be clear.
Okay. Oh, you don't know yet? Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't. They started fermenting, and I had left. I met up with them at GBBF, Great British Beer Festival, after that. But I'll tell you, if you get a chance to be around Birmingham, go by Burning Soul. Just two of the nicest people you're going to meet in brewing, and really talented brewers and creative people, and a lot of fun to hang out with. I just love those guys.
Not the smartest guys ever working with you in the marshmallows, but nice guys.
A little bit of a dumbass, especially that Chris guy. I mean, really. I don't know if you heard the story about Nando's and when he killed two people.
Oh dear!
But it's I cannot walk past a Nando's without a little tinge in my heart.
Oh boy!
Regret and sadness. Chris.
Sounds like my life. What's your number 9, JZ?
My number 9 is trying to get me back on track.
A little bit.
See what you did there.
Just a little.
A hop freezer.
Oh, right.
Because, when you open these bags, you don't always work in 44-pound increments or 20-kilo increments. You have some left over. And one of the things, the colder the temperature, the better your hops are going to store. So we store the bulk of our hops in our big walk-in, and it's like 37 degrees Fahrenheit. But once the bag's open, no longer nitrogen flushed, we roll them up and we put them in the hop freezer. And they get used within a few days, but I think that little extra bit of temperature control, dropping it down to, whatever it is, minus 10 or 4 or whatever it is, really helps. So just a good giant chest freezer.
Okay.
And it's right next to the brew platform. It's real convenient.
So when the hops come in and they're sealed from the supplier, fridge is fine. Yeah. It's only after you open them you go to the freezer.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think that makes a difference. I do.
All right.
So hop freezer, number 9. John, you're number 8.
Quick disconnects.
Oh yeah.
There have been many connection options available for years, but for me, the Moore Beers stainless steel QDs have always been my gold standard. Mm-hmm. And I've had, I'm a do-it-yourselfer. I've made several different brew systems. Practically brew on a new system every time I brew. Mm-hmm. And
because your beer ruins the previous one.
You'd think, but I just get a better idea,
right.
Or at least I think I do. But having these quick disconnects on the ends of every hose, the male ends, and then the females on the kettles or the fermenters or the pumps, it just means you can snap a hose in, right. Swap hoses out, move them around real easy, very convenient.
Right, you can couple up wherever you want to couple your hose. And I'm with you 100%. I think that, there's a lot of times, especially if you're going to use a pump, where you can move things around, you can change your configuration on the fly, and it's extremely useful. In the commercial brewing world, we use, mainly tricover clamps, sanitary clamps. They're not as quick to use, but, it generally, gives you the same
that
sort
flexibility.
of result. Yeah, and it's very important. And I mean, to think of it, I don't know that we could brew in the commercial world without tri-clamps. I consider that one of the basic requirements.
It's a given. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But I like it on a homebrew list. I didn't have QDs until I got your brew system, Jamil.
Oh, yeah.
And then I understood the value and the ease of them. So.
Oh, it's fantastic. For me, number 8 is a good set of accurate measuring tools for volume. So, like 10, 100, 1,000 mil, accurate graduated cylinders. So that, when you're measuring out things, I mean, we use a lot of pipettes as well and pipetters especially when we're testing things like how much fruit do we want to add to this beer. And being able to accurately measure volume is really, really critical. And I guess in the homebrew world, I would put, maybe a scale, a good, accurate gram scale or something like that.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Could be quite handy. And like I've said in the past, if it's a scale is good for measuring cocaine, it's good for measuring hops.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, that, and I think that's a great one, Jamil, because you are a man who has built his reputation on side-by-side testing. And, all the recipes that you did in brewing classic styles, perfecting your beers over time, I mean, you did that based on, consistency of measurement, changing one variable at a time. And I agree. When I've done my experiments and for the books, you got to have a calibrated, reliable means of measuring things, whether it's volume or weight. Yeah, so very, very good point.
There you go. All right, let's see here. Number 7 for you, John?
7, ball valves. Ball valves that you can mount on the side of a kettle or fermenter.
Right.
Just negates the need for an auto siphon, but again, very, very easy things to keep clean.
The auto siphon's real handy in things like transferring from a fermenter. You may not have ball valves available like on a glass fermenter or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and for number 7 for me, I went again with measurement. Actually, I do have 11 on my list now.
Oh, yeah. It goes to 11.
Number 7, I'd be quality set of narrow range hydrometers. And a quality hydrometer jar cylinder. So, the one hydrometer you get that goes from 0 to 1,000,000, it's just not as precise. And really, when you're doing, professional brewing, having a set of narrow range hydrometers, which means, you get one from 0 to, 1032, you'll get one from 1020 something to 1050 something, and so it's a narrower range. So the marks are more spread out.
I see.
Your bulb is much larger and much more generous, shall we say?
Mm-hmm.
And then a good hydrometer jar, a clear one that's the right size and volume. Those things really help to be able to precisely measure what's going on, and especially if you're watching fermentation and you want to know where your gravities are, and you should be checking that every day to observe the progress of your fermentations. I think it's a critical set of tools.
I see. Now, that one might seem obvious to you, JZ, but I never knew that existed. existed, and I always thought that reading a hydrometer was kind of a pain in the ass with the marks too close together.
Right, because
I knew I was like,
right.
Maybe it's 10.8, maybe it's 10.6, right. I don't know.
Yeah.
I did not know that they made a more easier to read and more accurate device.
And they'll even certify them. They come with certification papers that they're adjusted correctly, and they're reading precise.
Okay.
You actually legally have to have it for a distillery.
I see.
You don't legally have to have it for a brewery. So there you go.
That's a good one.
Why? Thank you. I'm pleased with that one. All right. Let's do this. You want to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll resume with John's number 6?
Number 6 coming up.
All right. Right after this.
Learning to brew has never been so disgusting. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. We're doing our top 10 lists of the homebrew and professional brew equipment that we can't live without. And I guess, you think about all the pieces and parts that you have in your homebrew arsenal and your pro arsenal. I mean, you've got like a little, white totes of 50 different pieces of things, hoses, little devices. And the weird thing is, and I wanted to do a blog or something called The Critical Brick.
Mm-hmm.
And this is from my friends at Malmo Brewing, Tom Svensson, and the great brewers there. But I'm pretty sure it was their brewery. Yeah. And this is where I started thinking about it, is like when they ran this hose into some part of the brewing process, they take this brick and put it over the top of the hose. And without the brick, every brewery I've been to, there's like a brick, or there's a binder clip, or there's a piece of wire, or there's a stick, or there's some piece of something that without it they couldn't brew.
Yeah.
And so I was like, and they're like, well, yeah, the brick's critical. I'm like, yeah, it's your critical brick.
Right.
And I'm like, every brewery has this. And so I just thought that someday I'd wander around and I would find the critical brick at every brewery.
Right.
And for a while there, I was asking everybody, what's the critical brick? And and they'd be like, what? I'm like, what?
Until you explain.
Piece of crap. And they're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Every brewery has it.
Yeah.
Every brewery has a critical brick. And every home brewer has it. I remember my good friend Dave Saps's. His was like a binder clip and a piece of wire, without which he couldn't brew,
Yeah.
And the weird thing is, to find another brick of the right weight and size and shape, is very difficult. You can't just go out and buy these things.
Right.
That's why they're critical. All right. So the critical brick should be on here.
I think so.
There you go.
It's your number 12.
That's my number 12 is my critical brick.
Should be on John's number 6.
Number 6, yes.
Yeah, and it is. It is the kettle tube screen.
Oh, yeah.
And I've labored over kettle, pop screens and things for years, and finally built my own out of the that stainless steel mesh you get off of the
braided hose.
Yeah, braided hose,
reinforced hose,
wash machine hose.
Right.
And that really did the trick for me. That solved all my blockage problems going into the pump, going into the chiller.
All your blockage problems.
Yeah.
Freed up. You hear that, Justin?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Solve your blockage problems.
And to me, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but that's one that over the years, it seems like almost everyone has tried to just create a off-the-shelf device. But
right.
There's no one size fits all. I'm guessing that's why you had to end up making your own, John. Like we've had sponsors give me some before, and just they never quite worked in everybody's system.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I the one I made for me, fit over the end of the dip tube on my my Blickman kettles, and so that became the Anvil kettle screen that we sell.
Okay.
Yeah, but you need something that stays on and screens the tube to keep you from standing there going, well, shit, how do I get it in the fermenter now?
Yeah,
and reaching for a piece of hose.
Okay.
So it's one of those things. It's that critical brick where if you realize you don't have that, it kind of stops your brew day.
Well, there you go. For me, number 6 was the ability to check the CO2 levels in a beer, because on the smaller scale, it's easy enough to wait and to use time and temperature and a chart, and what the CO2 level is on something. But on the larger scale, when you're trying to carbonate 120 barrels of beer, you really need to know what's coming out. And I got some friends with smaller breweries, and they don't have the ability to check, and sometimes their CO2 levels can be quite variable on some beers. And I think that being able to check CO2 levels is carbonation levels in your beer is quite a joy and a necessity in the commercial brewing.
That's interesting, because you don't have that issue really at the homebrew level unless you're trying to win competitions. But you got the
even then it's like a point,
Yeah, in the homebrew level, you see it on your regulator. You got it set to 10, 15 psi, something like that.
Right.
But I can see where you don't have.
Well, and those things tend to be wrong too.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But, really on the homebrew scale, I've never really cared what my carbonation level was. It was as long as it was carbonated.
You've always been quite gassy, though, John.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. All right. Number 5 on your list?
The wort chiller in all its glory, whether it's immersion, counterflow, plate. Pretty critical. Now we're getting the top 5. That's pretty critical piece of equipment.
I'm almost surprised that it isn't even higher.
But I kind of wondered that too.
There's ways to get around it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could just seal it up and let it chill overnight.
Right, like our friends in Australia do.
Yeah,
the no chill. Yeah. Okay. What kind of chiller do you like? You haven't specified.
I've been using the Blickman Therminator for years. The plate chillers have the advantage of compact size, quick chilling. Good efficiency there. The one I used before that was my 50-foot immersion chiller, which always worked every time. Very little hassle,
right?
Easy to clean,
right?
So,
you can clean the exterior of it, which is nice.
I never had great luck with immersion chillers and tending to brew in the summer, where even the water wasn't all that cold. It wasn't until Tasty talked me into using the Therminator that I was really able to get my wort down to almost pitching temp, like really close to pitching temp, quickly enough. Right. I just never had a lot of luck with an immersion one.
Right.
And of course, we should just mention everyone was so worried about how you can't properly clean a plate chiller, but Tasty's method was just clean it immediately afterward when you're done. Run water both directions through it, and he makes great beer and never had an issue.
I will guarantee you that you can't clean the interior of a plate chiller without taking it apart.
Okay.
I mean, that's one thing every 6 months, every year, we have to take our plate chiller apart.
I see, yeah.
And clean it out. And you'd be surprised at how much builds up in there.
You don't think that even on a homebrew scale, as long as you're immediately flushing it like Tasty's method was, you still think you're going to get some buildup in there?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
But, as long as you're heat sanitizing it, the only real problem you're running into... I mean, you've got to heat the things up to kill off whatever's in there, because it will build up material in there. The only thing you're running into is at some point your flow is becoming more and more restricted, and you will see a reduction in chilling performance, and you will see a reduction in flow. You'll have to put more pressure on it. One of John's items was a pump in order to push harder against something.
Yep.
But on the homebrew scale, something like the Therminator is probably going to last you the rest of your brewing life. You'd have to run an insane number of brews through there before there's a problem. As long as you're cleaning
this is what I was thinking.
After,
yeah,
you're going to die before it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, you in particular.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of. So we're brewing, 4, 5, 6 batches a day, 4 or 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And, so our plate chiller, is seeing, a lot more volume going through it. It's larger, but, on the homebrew scale, how many batches are you brewing a year? If you're brewing 30 or 50 even, which most people never do.
Yeah.
If you're brewing once a week, it's going to be 20 years of that before it's a problem even. And it may be 30 years.
Sure.
So it's not a big deal. It is impossible to clean it by circulating liquid through it.
Okay.
It works, but it's not perfect.
Okay.
That's all I want people to know. So, but I think it's not a problem. Also, on the other hand,
as long as you heat sanitize before you use it the next time.
I think heat sanitizing is a brilliant idea on the end.
Yeah.
And you'll never run into a problem if you do that.
Yeah, just throw it in the oven 250, 300 degrees for half an hour, and
or even just circulate some boiling liquid through it until the thing gets hot, and you're good.
That's what I did.
All right. My number 5 is a precision thermometer for checking your other thermometers.
Good. Yeah.
Because, and I would throw a pressure gauge in there too. Because if you cannot check, if you cannot rely on the instruments that you get. You can get some certified ones. We've got a specialized device that actually checks the pressure of the pressure gauges, because without it, they're all over the place. They get bumped, or they just come in 3 psi off. And if you're trying to carbonate and you're relying on the pressure gauge on your CO2 tank and the temperature of your thermometer in your fridge, if those things aren't precise, you could be off like half a volume. So that's why sometimes I think people struggle with it doesn't carbonate it right. Forced carbonation doesn't work. Well, you can't even do truly precise bottle carbonation without really knowing the temperature of the beer and really knowing the dissolved CO2 that's already in there, and being able to weigh out precisely your amount of sugar, right?
Yep.
There you go. So a lot of mine's based on measurement, I think. That's an important part to me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. John, you're number 4.
4. Let's see. Yeah, this is where the chiller and number 4 could have swapped places. Mm-hmm. Number 4 for me is a bottle of spray sanitizer.
Okay.
A spray bottle of sanitizer.
I'm wondering, are you saying you don't need sanitizer? Or
no, I'm saying that it is a spray bottle of sanitizer.
So you would still use sanitizer. You're saying that your device is your number 4 is a spray bottle.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. It's a spray bottle.
Yeah.
Not spray sanitizer.
Of sanitizer.
No.
Yeah.
Specifically for sanitizer.
You could spray anything out of that thing, John.
Well, yeah. I could spray yeast out of it, I guess.
Right.
Everybody likes spraying things.
Yeah, this is a good one. It's there's just sometimes nooks and crannies you can't get to without a spray. You're not going to dip everything in a bucket.
Well, and even if you do, when you dip something, you can have air bubbles form. It'll form like a little meniscus of air on a surface, and that is not getting sanitized.
Yeah,
it's one of the advantages of a spray bottle is you can get that fine mist, or you can get a stream or whatever you need. Whatever you need shooting out of that bottle, you can
get it down.
Adjustable.
Yeah.
I'm assuming John wants adjustable. And then you can spray that on, and it actually does a better job of coating the surface than if it was dipped into a bucket because, again, some sort of structure, fitting, whatever.
Hydrophobicity, yeah.
Right. Can
that was part of
exactly. That's the word I was looking for. Can trap air, just like like beetles when they go underwater, they trap air with them. And that's not getting sanitized. So the spray bottle is actually a useful tool with the sanitizer, as John's saying, to a little bit better sanitize in there.
I like it when low tech becomes high tech like that.
Right. Well, there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
Something so simple, you don't really think about, the effect it's having.
Yeah.
But can be important. All right.
What's your number 4?
Number 4, pH meter.
Oh, yes. Very good.
I mean, really, so what we use it for is, not only the mash, not only our water. Of course, we use the Lamont kit for, checking our water, and then the mash, and then also for daily, every fermentation, we are checking the pH of the fermentation. Because just like specific gravity, pH follows a certain path during your fermentation. And one of the things that you want to do, especially as a pro brewer, and I think as a home brewer if you can, is to check your specific gravity and your pH every day. And if you plot that out and your beer turns out great, plot that same thing every time. If you check other fermentations, if you see that there's a deviation on pH or gravity day to day, then there's a problem. You've done something different. There's an issue with that ferment, and you need to take action, or you need to at least be aware that beer may not work out. So, it's critical to be able to check your pH of a fermentation daily.
Question. A little bit of off on a tangent here, but do you do pH measurement beginning and end of mash? Or just once during?
We do a pH beginning of the mash, and we do a pH of the runnings, or the and like a kettle pH as well.
So you do kettle full, okay,
right?
Which would be essentially end of mash.
I've made them record so much data, they get annoyed with me. But yeah, our log. You see a lot of breweries log sheets, and they've got maybe 10 lines of them or whatever. Ours is just packed. I'm just like, no, I need every little bit of data, because that's the only way you're actually going to be able to affect things. Maybe log sheet should be number 1. I'm just saying.
There you go.
There you go. All right.
Well, the reason I ask is at the last Homebrew Con, I did my water talk, and I have a graphic where I show the decrease in pH throughout the brewing process, from the mash down to to the end of mash, to the boil, to fermentation, to final beer pH, and I show it as a continual decrease.
Right.
Well, Martin Brungard said that in his experience that pH tends to rise during the mash, and that just seemed wrong to me in my experience. And so I was just wondering if, in your experience...
Well, no, I think we're getting final runnings pH. No, it does tend to rise. Well, it depends on what your water is.
Yeah, that's my thought.
If you're fly sparging or not, or are you talking about just the mash rest?
I think just the mash rest was he was referring to. I mean, because I think we would agree that as you sparge, as you louder,
right,
the pH will rise.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
But he was saying just during the mash itself.
I would imagine that is a possibility with, the enzymatic activity going on, the conversion to the sugars. It may be releasing some, or it may be utilizing...
just changing the buffer compounds.
Yeah, and so the buffering is being consumed And that may be a possibility as well.
Yeah. I think if you have insufficient calcium in the mash, then that may be a factor. Whereas if you have sufficient calcium, you're still going to get calcium reacting with phosphates, generating protons, and a general decrease.
Isn't there generally enough calcium in the malt? I guess it depends on where it's grown.
Yeah.
Right.
Depends on it's grown. Depends on what the alkalinity of the water is that it's working against. Because you've got so much phosphate in the malt itself that has a particular Ki.
Right. There's a considerable amount.
Yeah. So anyway,
malt.
I didn't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but
I think that's fascinating. That's what people listen to this load of a show for, is us just wandering off on
dispensing loads.
It's dispensing loads left and right. But part of it might be that. It depends on where you're brewing and what the water is and what kind of malts you tend to use. And if you're using like German Pilsner malt all the time with really soft water, and you're making some sort of Pilsner all the time, you may experience that versus you're making Irish dry stout with or Burton water or something like that. You're going to experience a whole different world of pH change in the mash.
Yeah, I think that's the case.
Right. I think the important thing is to have the tools to measure it, and when the beer tastes right, it's like, okay, so those are the numbers we want. Those numbers aren't present, and that's a problem. All right. Let's see. What was my? So that was your number 4. No,
yeah,
that was mine.
That was your number 4 pH meter. Right. So John's number 3.
A good boil kettle.
Okay.
Instead of a crappy one?
Yeah. I mean, a one that is durable, doesn't dent easy, doesn't corrode easy, transfers heat well, doesn't
like
scorch.
An anvil brewing.
Yeah, kind of like an anvil. But I mean, there's lots of possibilities for good kettles out there these days. I mean, when I started, I was using the the canning pot, the black enameled canning pot.
Me too.
Yeah.
I had one with a chip in it that was rusted.
Yeah, everybody has one of those, I think, with that one rusty chip.
Yeah. It's like, well, I don't taste rust.
Yeah.
It must be fine.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
You're number 3.
Well, I would also, on John's kettle, the brew plant, the equipment that you're using, if you cannot get a good boil, I would, on the pro level, the burner and all that stuff, or how you're heating the kettle, is integrated into the kettle. You don't buy a kettle and set it on a separate burner. You are steam jacketed, and then you have your boiler, or you've got direct fire. You got so it's actually really critical. And a good kettle, if you cannot get a boil, you don't have to boil as vigorously as people think, but having a kettle that is easy to clean, a kettle that holds the right amount of wort. A kettle that'll come to a boil at times, fairly quickly. That's all very important in a commercial brewery as well. So, kettle's a pretty good item.
And on the homebrew side, just looking at Palmer's list, by the way, with a good kettle, you can knock out a couple of the things on Palmer's top 10 list, including ball valves and quick disconnects, as opposed to a kettle that doesn't have valves at all, right?
Yeah.
So a good kettle, I think Palmer is saying, might even include a couple other things on his list.
Right. That's excellent point there. I'm surprised. You're actually paying attention.
Every now and then.
Right. You're drinking just the right amount at this point.
Yeah.
My number 3 was an O2 meter.
Yes, very good.
It's important for consistently being able to. Well, there's 2 kinds of O2 meters for the brewery. There's one for your wort oxygenation, and there's one for your packaged oxygen. And if you're a small brewery that's doing mainly draft and you're doing out of your tap room, you don't need the package oxygen. It's not as important as the wort oxygen. So I would go with the wort oxygen as being the more critical one there. But if you, in any world, think that you're going to put beer in cans or bottles and you're going to send this out and it's going to go out to the store shelves and all that, you got to, for God's sakes, be able to measure package oxygen. If you are not, you're sending out oxidized beer and it's, you think it's fine and you're checking, like, you know, you can't package it and then like send it to somebody else to check, because by the time it gets there, the oxygen has already oxidized a lot of the beer, and you're sending out something very questionable. So I would just urge everyone who wants to package beer, make cans or bottles with mobile bottling or canning and all this stuff, for God's sake, spend the money on being able to test package oxygen. It will represent your brewery and craft beer so much better than just kind of letting it, winging it, and you're just like, oh no, it's fine, it's fine. I hear from everybody, oh, it's okay. No, we sent it to a friend, and like a week later, he told us that the oxygen was really low. It's like, well, yeah, it was a week later.
So, JZ, because you, as you say, people like when you go off on a little bit of tangent. That's why you learn stuff here. Do you think that there's a difference between TPO, total package oxygen, and DO? Because very often we just talk about dissolved oxygen, right? But I was speaking with Vinny up there at Russian River, of course.
Yeah, TPO is what you're trying to measure. Yeah.
That's he. You know, he's the first one I've heard really say the difference, and I just thought it might be worth pointing out to brewers.
Right.
And he was explaining to me, for example, TPO has to be measured, you know, right then.
Yeah.
Even driving across town to your buddy with a TPO meter is not going to give you the most accurate reading.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to do it immediately. Otherwise, the point is the oxygen is very reactive, and it is oxidizing the compounds in the beer immediately. Mm-hmm. Oxidation happens pretty much right away. And within, you know, a few hours, it's all done. It's oxidized the crap out of your beer.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So you absolutely have to do that right away.
Okay.
Yes. All right, so that was my number
3.
Yeah. 3. So now we're on Palmer's number 2. We're getting to the top here.
Good mash tun.
Mash tun.
No, a good mash tun, not a crappy mash tun. A good one.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of options. I mean, these days you've got your brew in a bag setups that are very easy. Mm-hmm. It can be a cooler, it can be a kettle. It can be a kettle with a false bottom or a cooler with a false bottom.
Right.
But I think having that effective wort separation system built into your mash tun and some degree of insulation built into your mash tun, especially at the homebrew level, makes a big difference in quality wort.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You know, to this day, one of the best mash tuns I ever had in terms of keeping heat and separation was that orange igloo cooler with a false bottom.
Yep.
You know, I couldn't change the temperature and I couldn't do steps with it, but it would stay right where I put it for the entire hour.
Well, there you go.
It didn't budge at all.
Right.
And I like that you're pointing out wort separation and insulation.
Yeah. Yep. That's the name of the game. And interestingly, we did that show 2 weeks ago on all-in-one systems. Mm-hmm. Where if you combine the kettle and the mash tun, like in the Grainfather or the Anvil Forge, that is an extremely convenient way to mash and boil. Really cuts down on the amount of cleanup and that you have to do. So I don't know. I was interested, I thought it was interesting when I was putting my list together that kettle and mash tun came out there at 3 and 2 for myself.
Well, there you go. For me, number 2, and I'm going to squeeze in my number 11 my 11th one here. And actually, I really went back and forth on this, was the ability to do cell counts, which is going to be, either there's automated equipment now, which will do it for you consistently and fast, and that's really nice. Or you can get a microscope and a hemocytometer. But if you're not good at doing it, the results can vary. But it's very important towards pitching the right amount of yeast and getting great fermentation and checking viability and all that stuff. And then I would throw in there, should you forgive me for throwing more in, like HLP tubes or plates, a way to check for contamination in your pitch. So every time before we pitch a new beer from a previous beer, we take a sample of the yeast. We're checking viability. We're doing cell counts. We're checking for contamination HLP. We're doing plates to look for morphology changes. We're checking the yeast, and I guess this is checking the yeast. That would be my number two, is making sure that the yeast you're going to pitch is the right amount, the right quality, and that's really what's going to give you great beer. So that would be my number two. I can't live without that.
Now, Jamil, just to clarify, you at Heretic are doing your own yeast management. You're not buying new yeast every time?
Not every time, but we do buy new pitches from various yeast suppliers like White Labs, and generally we will run about 15 generations or so. 10 to 20 generations. It depends on when we start seeing any sort of change in the morphology on the plates, or we see any sort of issues with the way the fermentation performance is happening. That's why you want to be able to check with precision your precision hydrometers, your precision pH, these things during fermentation. You want to be able to look at the yeast and see how an individual cell is growing. If it starts looking different, that's an issue. You want to check for contamination. And so just as a prophylactic measure, we buy new pitches of yeast every so often, so that we start up a new culture, and we do it in parallel with, at the same time we tend to run like 2 pitches of 001 at the same time, so that at any time, and we try and stagger them, so that at any time if there's a problem with one, we can switch over to the other and use the other for multiple beers, and then we order up a new pitch of the other to keep two ancestries running parallel, and so it gives us some protection that way.
Yeah, good planning. Yeah.
I like to think so. And we've learned from experience where we've been screwed royally and dumped tens of thousands of dollars a year.
Oh, no. All right, we're getting down to number ones here.
Number one. John.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same one.
Could be.
But for me, the fridge and temperature controller. That is a maintainable, controllable fermentation environment.
I will say, when I was homebrewing, when I finally got actual control of the beer temperature for fermentation, it was night and day difference. It radically changed my world and the quality of my beer. I think it's one of the most precious things you can do. I mean,
would you say you didn't even start winning awards until you had temperature control?
No, I won awards before that.
Okay.
It was more hit or miss until then, and then I was just like, oh, damn, I know what I'm doing now.
I see.
And I could ferment. It didn't even matter if the recipe was good. I could, make a winner.
Got it.
Yep. Yeah, it's same here. I mean, being able to control that just makes all the difference in the world. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Jay-Z.
My number one. Now, I've got to preface this with, I'm assuming in your professional brewery you've got fermentation temperature control. If you don't, then I really don't know what the hell you're doing there.
You're not a professional brewer.
If you're not out of business yet, you will be. You should be soon.
You will be soon, or it should be soon. Well, I guess you could do it without it.
Well, okay, let's take...
There's certain times a year you wouldn't be able to brew, but yeah. Sure.
I mean, okay, the rare barrel, for example.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I guess their fermentation, their initial fermentation is probably temperature controlled, and then afterward they sort of picked a warehouse that's moderately,
No, that doesn't qualify.
Okay. Okay.
Good try, though.
Yeah.
But I imagine there's some people in Belgium somewhere where when they pitch yeast, they don't even really pitch yeast. It's like, well, fermentation is up to God, and know,
right,
and the weather and whatever. My number one is zinc, mono or heptahydrate.
Really,
zinc. I can't be in business without zinc.
I'll figure out. I'm writing their list down. Mono or heptahydrate?
Yeah, heptahydrate.
Okay.
I prefer the mono because there's less water in it, and I'm not paying for water.
What does this stuff do?
Well, zinc is critical to fermentation. Fermentation is critical to brewing. The vast majority of wort is zinc deficient. And especially when you want to repitch yeast, especially when you have consistent fermentation, especially if you want to ferment big beers, you have to have zinc. The amount of zinc that's coming from the malt is dependent on the growing conditions, the soil, how much zinc it could take up from the soil. A lot of the minerals that yeast need are present in the malt, but it tends to be zinc deficient. There's just barely enough. It's interesting. I was talking to somebody about this. I don't know, yeast person or something. That
Liz, maybe.
Or maybe like Charlie or somebody. It seems that yeast have developed. The yeast that we're using today have developed over time to match up kind of with the ingredients that we have, the malt, and just generally it all just kind of works together, and everything has kind of become self-limiting to, well, all right, if you want to make a beer of 4 to 5% alcohol, well, all the ingredients are there, and the malt wants to become, the malted barley. The barley will become malted because of, its natural proclivity to grow the sprouts and to do all this stuff. And the malted barley will become sugary because, well, it's just the enzymes are there to do it, and you just kind of hit the certain temperature. You can just kind of half-ass all this stuff. And, there's the nutrients there for just about any yeast to produce a 4 to 5% beer. It will just all happen. That's pretty impossible not to make beer. The natural things have natural selection has kind of driven us towards it'll make beer. But when you want to make really good tasting beer, when you want to make high alcohol beers, when you want to do all this, you're pushing it past that. Well, here's where natural selection has gotten us. You have to really. It's like, having everybody run a race. It's like, well, natural selection, yeah, people are alive, but some of us ain't going to run as fast as others.
Yeah.
But then you've got, people that, Usain Bolt or whatever, that's something special.
Yeah.
And maybe that's steroids. I don't know. But it is whatever it is. And it's because you've provided a certain environment, certain parameters that make that possible, but it's not going to happen every day. And a big part of it is wort's just deficient in zinc.
So would you say zinc is almost the steroids of the brewing
Yes. Yes.
of the brewery.
I am on steroids.
Yeah.
Literally. And my brewery is figuratively.
Okay.
If you go by that, yeah. I would go with zinc.
Well, I would say zinc is to iron what zinc is to yeast what iron is to blood.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. And you said, just to clarify, that you prefer the
monohydrate.
The mono.
Well, because it's
now,
less,
is it a
less
zinc
water.
sulfate monohydrate or just pure zinc with water attached?
Zinc sulfate monohydrate, yeah.
Okay.
I think there's sulfate in all of them, right? And there's heptahydrate. So if you buy the zinc, I think Murphy's or whatever it is, the English-based one, it's heptahydrate. So you need to use like 7 times as much or whatever, or not 7 times as much. There's 7 water molecules versus 1 water molecule.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with that is, a lot of the weight is water weight then. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you're just paying for a bunch of water. But you can get food grade either way, and you need a tiny amount. So in a 30 U.S. barrel batch, or 30 some odd U.S. barrel batch, we use like 4 grams.
Oh, wow.
You can use too much, and you can poison your yeast. You can use too little, and essentially, if you ever have fermentation, and I tell commercial brewing friends of mine, I'm like, they're like, yeah, this fermentation was taking forever on this big beer, and especially collaboration. I'm like, we're going to do a collab. You need to use some zinc, because when you have slow, big fermentations, it's because there's not enough zinc. I guarantee you, it'll ferment out at a nice steady pace and complete, attenuation if you have all the right nutrients there. If you have healthy yeast and you have every compound that they need to do their jobs, they will do their jobs. If you don't, that's when they struggle. That's when they slow down. That's when things fail. That's when the quality of the beer fails. And it's down to the one nutrient you need that is deficient almost all the time, other than, you're already giving them air or oxygen. Zinc. Zinc, 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 zinc.
Okay.
I can't run my brewery without zinc.
There we go.
Excellent.
Yeah. Well, I think that was a good show, a nice list.
Yeah. I think so.
And you know what, folks? Here's what I'm going to do for you. A lot of you get your podcast over on iTunes or Google Play and all that, and you never see the website. But with this particular show, I've marked down this entire list and separated them, both John Palmer's and Jamil's here. And I will put links to the things that they discussed, and you can come see the whole list. And if you want to pick some up yourself or just see exactly what they're talking about, it'll be on the Brewing Network website on this show page.
There you go. Actually,
Cool.
see, you actually did something useful.
Yeah.
Don't
One thing.
talk about yourself being useless.
Again.
All right.
I thought that was never mind.
All right. Great show. I think I'll come back and do this again. I don't know.
Well, all right.
Another 6 months or 2 weeks. Who knows? We'll just have to see what happens.
Well, keep taking care of yourself. We like to see you back here.
Oh, I like to take care of myself.
Yeah.
You know that. There's a time when, you need a little me time.
That's right.
You break out the candles,
At least
music,
once a day.
a little potpourri, some lube,
Some Legos.
tissues, some Legos,
Some zinc.
some zinc. Yeah, that's all I got her to take off her head. Oh, she put it back. Yeah. Yes. The good old Brewing Network.
Yeah.
Where would I be without you guys?
I don't know. Somewhere healthier, probably.
Yeah, somewhere healthier, rich,
Yeah.
famous, whatever it would be. I'd be there. I'd be somewhere other than here, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Till then, everybody, brew strong.
Brew strong, everyone.